man, I have been hard at work gathering all of the supplies needed for today's project, and I've been holding on to this design for a good part of a year. I think even over a year. I've had this redstone circuit designed, but before we get to building the project today, while I was getting ready, I noticed something a little bit strange over in the dark oak forest, and honestly, I was kind of hearing some weird noises that I've never heard before. I don't know if this is a bug. I want you guys to check it out with me, okay?
Go down. Dark oak trees, by the way, one of the best trees to get stuff from too.
No!
Huh?
No! 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 Nope! 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 No! Wake up, BluJay. This is just a dream. It's just a. Oh, hey, Prow.
What? What?
So yeah. Prow's here now. Okay, so for those of you that don't know, this has been my world for over 9.5 months or so, and I started it as a single player series, and Prow and I were talking together and thinking it would be really fun to do something together again. So we figured we'd come back here together in this world.
So just like we did in Bedrock Guide Season 1, we're gonna be together in this world. We will progress totally separately. So BluJay's already got like a bunch of cool stuff. I'll get all my cool stuff on my own. We won't share inventories, blocks, farms. None of that stuff will be shared unless it's a project that we work on together for our guide series. So our guide series will still be totally separate from each other, but we'll stop in and say hello every once in a while. We'll do a group project together every once in a while, and I'm sure some shenanigans will happen along the way.
That sounds awesome to me.
All right, cool. Well, BluJay, I'll come over and visit you sometime once I get kind of set up here, but I'm super glad to be back in the world with you, sir. I think this is going to be spectacular.
Dude, I agree. But before you wander off, hold on. I've got something for you. Come follow me really quick. Before you get any ideas, all right? I'm not giving you the beacon.
Look, we found iron blocks. Iron blocks.
I'm not giving you the beacon. Listen.
Oh, sorry, I'll put that back.
Okay, so I know you want to do things separately, right? We're gonna get our own resources. You're not geared up yet. It's okay. You don't have to take this stuff right now, but I wanted to offer you an olive branch as a welcome to the neighborhood gift. Everything in this chest you can take, okay?
Oh. A stack of different. Oh! No! What? How did you do that?
Hey, welcome to the neighborhood, Prow.
You're already trying to kill me. Bye! All right, guys, we're going back to our guide. Can I start a new world? You're trying to kill me. I hate you so much.
I'm so mad it didn't work.
I got reflexes like a cat. That's why they call me Prow.
Oh, man. At least I got free gunpowder out of it. And a good laugh. Oh, man. It's been too long since I've played with Prow. I kind of forgot he's not that easy to take down. But I did want to show you this really quick before we dive into the project for today. There were 2 trapped chests hooked up right here. And there's some redstone directly underneath this block. And if we go down here, you're gonna see that this was all an elaborate plan to try to take Prow down on day 1. It didn't work. But I had 3 creepers sitting on the slime block, and this entire contraption was meant to pop those creepers out of the ground, which worked flawlessly when he opened the chest. But unfortunately, he could still see everything going on and ran away in time. We'll get him next time. On to today's project, the super smelter. It's about time. The most automated smelting that I've had so far in this series is this right here. And this is perfect for early game, but we're not in the early game anymore. We need something to smelt a ton of resources quickly, and that's what's gonna go right here in this box, plus some underground, and I think it's gonna go that direction. Or maybe that direction? I'm not sure yet. We'll see. So actually, speaking of directions, there is a specific way that you have to build this. Otherwise, it's not going to work correctly. It's really difficult to tell by looking at this because the visual is basically non-existent. But based on which direction these are facing, the pistons will actually retract or extend slower or faster depending on which way they're facing. And when I say it's very, very, very minimal, maybe a quarter tick speed, but it's just enough to mess up this design if it's facing the wrong direction, which is so frustrating. But hey, that's Minecraft. I can't remember off the top of my head if Minecraft directions mimic real world directions, but just for the sake of argument, let's say that they do, and that is east. The sun is rising in the east, which makes that north, west, and south. And so pistons that are facing east and south will retract at the same speed, but pistons that are facing north and west will actually retract at a quarter tick speed less. I'm not 100% sure that it's a quarter tick speed, but based on how this smelter reacts, that's my best guess. Either way, you have to make sure this is facing the right direction, otherwise it's not gonna work. So if you're going to follow along and build this in your world, you're gonna wanna find sunrise and orient your redstone to be facing towards sunrise, and that'll all make sense as we start to build this project, which you're gonna do right now. Starting over here in the corner, I'm going to include this block and count 11 that direction, and then standing in line with this pillar, I'm going to count 6 this direction, and from here I'm going to pillar up a couple of blocks. At some point I'm going to have to dig some of this down because of the minecart retrieval system we're going to build, but we'll get there eventually. On top of this pillar right here, I'm going to put one upward facing dispenser, and then I'll go over 3 blocks right here, and on the 4th place another upward facing dispenser, and these are going to contain the minecarts for the smeltable items and the fuel. I need somewhere for the minecarts to go, so I'm going to place a temporary block right here and a permanent block right here, and then go ahead and break this one. I've already got a temporary block right here. I just need to place one more on top there and then break this one. And instead of building out 2 blocks like this on this dispenser, I'm actually going to go ahead and bring it down. And this is going to be very important for the order of the minecarts so that they don't ever cross paths. I'll explain that here in a little bit when we go through the entire redstone explanation, but just so you know, these go straight across, those 2 go down. From here, I'm going to place a detector rail on top of this dispenser, followed by a temporary rail right here, a permanent rail right there, and that rail does have to be a redstone rail, by the way, and then I'm gonna grab some regular rails as well and place one right here. I'll do the same thing right here, and when you're done, everything should look like this. I'm going to pause on the minecart track for just a second to go into the redstone circuitry that does multiple things. It's gonna be a little confusing at first, but I will explain how everything works together here toward the end of the tutorial. So if you're confused, don't worry, it's gonna get much more clear. This is the beginning of the item input for these minecarts to receive smeltable items. We're gonna put one chest right here and a second chest right here and mirror the same thing right over here on this minecart track as well. And then I'm gonna place a block right here with a redstone comparator facing out of this double chest, but we're not gonna do that over here. Then I'm gonna put a temporary block right here and then a block facing out of this redstone comparator, followed by a redstone torch on the side of this block, and then out of the side of this redstone torch right here, I'm going to put a temporary block, followed by a block right under it, and then I can break that block. And then out of the side of this block, I'm going to make a little L shape, and then a temporary block right here, followed by another block elevated in line with this one, and then one more block right here, followed by a redstone torch right there, and then attached to this redstone torch, facing toward the chest, I'm going to put one sticky piston. And then attached to this sticky piston, I'm going to put one solid block, and this is going to trap the minecart in place, but I don't want this to be extended by default. I want it actually to be off. So I'm going to put some redstone dust on top of each of these blocks that we placed down, and that will retract the piston to move that block out of the way. I'm going to do the same thing over here to this minecart track, but I want them to be on the exact same circuit so that they release at the exact same time. So the easiest way to do that would be to just extend this redstone line and then set it up exactly the same way. So without going into too much detail on how this works just yet, let me give you a brief explanation. Anytime you put at least one item inside of this double chest, the redstone circuit will activate, pushing these pistons forward and trapping the minecarts in place, but there are no minecarts. How do we get the minecarts? On this piston and not that piston, I'm going to put one observer facing directly up, and then a couple of blocks down, I'm going to break that temporary block and put a piece of redstone right here, and then I'm going to make a square shape and put redstone dust, followed by a repeater that is set to 4 ticks. Timings on this contraption are 100% important and necessary. If you miss one, the entire contraption falls apart. So make sure this is set to 4 ticks and going into a solid block right next to that dispenser, so that anytime now you put an item inside of this chest, and when these pistons extend, it's going to send a signal to that observer to power this dispenser and fire out a minecart. And now that minecart is locked in place, ready to receive items. Now I want both of these dispensers to fire at the same time, and that's a really easy solution. You just place a solid block right here, a solid block right here, and then another repeater facing into this block set to 4 ticks as well. And both of these dispensers now feed off of the same observer so that you don't have to set up unique circuits for both of these tracks. If you're only going to smelt a couple of items at a time, this actually would work as is. The only problem with that is if you put anything more than 5 stacks of items into this double chest, it's going to lock up the system because there's no circuit right now to tell this piston when this minecart is full, or in our case, 1 inventory slot is full. That's what makes this unique and really cool, because this minecart furnace will receive exactly 64 items every single time. So here's how we accomplish that part of the goal. Facing out of this detector rail, I'm going to put 1 comparator right here, followed by a solid block to the side, and a comparator facing into that comparator. And then we're going to change the mode of this comparator by right-clicking or clicking the use button, depending on what version of Minecraft you're playing. And then I'm going to put a solid block right here, which is going to be temporary. This is huge. If you leave this block here, it actually will not work as well. You need to break that as soon as we're done with the next part, which is going to be a hopper right here. And inside of that hopper, you're going to put exactly 23 items, not 22 items, not 24 items. 23 is the magic number. And then I'll break this block right here. And then also very, very important is to put another solid block right here and allow this redstone line to come down here and turn that off. Then out of the side of this comparator right here, I'm going to put a solid block, followed by a temporary block and a permanent block, breaking the temporary block. Facing away from the redstone contraption on this block we just placed down is going to go another repeater, and that repeater needs to be set to 4 ticks as well, followed by another solid block. And then we're going to change direction right here and put another repeater facing that direction. That is also set to 4 ticks. And then we're going to change direction one more time. But before we go to another repeater, we need a redstone dust right here, and then a repeater right here. And this time, this repeater is only set to 2 ticks. So between these 3 repeaters that we just placed down, we have a total of 10 ticks of delay before the signal gets back to here. And believe it or not, that's the majority of the redstone circuit right there. There's a few missing pieces for the end of the minecart track that we haven't gotten to yet, but the entire launching mechanism is done. So let's give it a quick demonstration and explain how it works. If I put a minecart with a hopper inside of this dispenser right here, and a minecart with a hopper inside of this dispenser right here, both of these are loaded and ready to go. This is going to be the fuel slot, and just for the sake of demonstration, we're going to use bamboo mosaic planks. When I load this chest, nothing happens, and that is by design. I want to be able to put fuel in here anytime I want without sending the minecarts on their way, and so this doesn't do anything but load the minecart once it's there. This one, however, once we place items inside of this chest, it's going to activate the system, and for the sake of demonstration, I'm going to put 2 stacks of items in here so that you can see that the minecart only takes 64 items at a time, and as soon as I do that, the minecarts pop out. This loads 64 items, and then it will immediately go on its way with no more than 64 items. We can confirm that right here, and we can also confirm the other stack is fully intact inside of the chest. So you're probably standing there confused like, BluJay, what in the world? How does that work? When you put an item inside of this chest, this redstone comparator is going to receive a signal which will power this block and depower that torch, which will depower this entire line, which then this block right here, which is attached to that redstone torch, and this block right here, which is attached to this redstone torch, will both lose power, allowing these torches to be repowered and extend the pistons. When this piston extends, the observer will say, hey, something happened. Send out a redstone signal. When that signal goes out, it will power the block attached to each of these dispensers to fire out a minecart. From there, the items will quickly start funneling into the minecart with a hopper, which is where this circuit comes into play. Without going into too much detail about how subtract mode works on comparators, essentially all you need to know is that these 23 items are sending out a signal to this comparator, which is comparing the signal as well, so that whenever, I don't remember the exact number of items, but it's just before 64 items, it might be like 56, 57, I can't remember. But whenever the set number of items goes into that hopper minecart, it will send out a signal, but it does not release this piston right away. That's what these 10 ticks of delay are for. The 10 ticks of delay on these repeaters send this redstone signal around, and because technically with items inside of that chest, this whole thing is depowered, when that redstone signal gets sent around, it repowers this temporarily to retract the pistons. And as these pistons retract and the minecart starts rolling away, it rolls away just in time to only receive 64 items from each chest. And that, once again, is why it is vitally important for you to face this contraption the correct direction. These pistons are extended toward the sunrise. They will also work facing this direction, but if you go that way or that way with it, it's going to put 65 items in the minecart, and that totally breaks this as well. So we've got the launching mechanism in place, and it's been explained hopefully well enough for you guys to understand. If you got questions, leave them in the comments. But what do we do with the items once they're in the minecarts and sent out? Well, we need an array of furnaces that are going to go that direction. I'm going to start with the fuel line, and how far this comes down kind of depends on your own world, because this is actually a pretty flexible part of the design. Just keep in mind that the more lead time that you leave before the furnaces extends the time that these items smelt by maybe a couple of seconds here and there. So you may be extending your smelt time if you put the furnaces too far away from the circuit, but for the sake of our design here, this is going to be the surface level probably to about here, I would guess, maybe a little farther. And I'm probably going to gradually drop it down over time until we hit that wall out there. And so I think if I drop my furnaces probably 5 or 6 blocks into the ground, we're not going to have to worry about moving them later. Starting at the bottom of the landing where my track is going to go, I'm going to leave 1 block of space before I start putting furnaces. And then from here, I'm going to count out 32 furnaces. And directly into the back of each of these furnaces, I'm going to put 1 hopper, make sure they are facing forward and not down. And then I'm just going to start placing in powered rails all the way down to the end of the line. You need to crouch to place these on top of hoppers. And once you've reached the end of this hopper line, go ahead and stop with the rails there for the moment. And actually, we'll bring them out by 1 block because rails are weird. If you place them next to each other and they're facing the wrong direction, once again, they'll actually connect up this way instead of that way, and that's what we want to avoid. So we can avoid that by placing 1 extra rail here, and now anything we place here is not going to matter. This next rail line is actually really important to give this a wide gap between the dispenser, because there's going to be a hopper right here, and once again, rails are super weird. If there were a hopper right here, because this is rounding the corner, it's going to drop an item into that hopper, which in this case, it's going to drop like cobblestone or beef or whatever we're smelting into the minecart line, and that's going to hose up the system as well. So many conditions to look at with this, but that's just kind of the nature of the beast, unfortunately. I'm going to make sure that this rail and this rail are both powered rails, but the rest of these for the first little bit here are going to be regular rails because I want this to go slightly slower than that minecart so that this one gets a head start. And this one lags behind just a little. And then once we get down to the end of this line, same thing, we're going to take a row of hoppers and put them into the top of these furnaces and run redstone rails all the way down the line as well. I'm actually going to break this powered rail right here for the moment and put another block right here and then another temporary block right here. And on this side of the track, we're going to put more furnaces, the rest of the 64 furnaces to be exact, and go all the way back toward the original circuit. And we're going to do the same thing, hoppers in the back for the fuel line, hoppers on top for the smeltable items, and rails all the way across. But you do need to know, you cannot round a corner with powered rails, so these do need to be irregular rails. And then once we get back on top of this hopper, we can convert back to powered rails, so the minecart keeps going as fast as possible. All 64 furnaces are now in place along with their hoppers and rails, and I've dug a hole out here for where the collection system is going to go for both items and minecarts. First, we're going to work on the minecart retrieval system because we want to be able to recycle these minecarts back into the dispensers so that they can be used repeatedly over and over. And in order to do that, I've placed one block right here that is 5 blocks below the dispenser and one over. And on top of this block, I'm going to place 4 droppers, and they absolutely need to be droppers and not a dispenser. You can tell the difference between the two because the dropper has a rectangular opening and the dispenser has a circular one. On top of this dropper right here, I'm going to place 1 hopper facing into the dispenser. In order for these droppers to pass the minecart up to that hopper and over to the dispenser to be recycled, we need a simple redstone circuit that starts with a temporary block right here. Then I'm going to take an observer and make sure that it is facing upwards, followed by a block right here, 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 and here. And then on top of this observer, a redstone comparator, followed by a repeater set to 1 tick, and then redstone dust all the way back into the comparator. Under the observer, I'm going to place a block right here, and then a block here and here to make an L shape, followed by redstone dust, and then another observer facing down into that redstone dust with a block on top, followed by a redstone torch, and then another block right here, and last but not least, another redstone torch right here. If I put one item into the bottom dropper here, you can see that it will activate and pass the item all the way to the top and on into the dispenser. So that's one minecart retrieval system. I need to build a second one that is identical to this for the smeltable items minecarts. Both dropper elevators are hooked up, and now I need a place for the minecarts to get dropped into those elevators, and that is going to be on this hopper right here and this hopper right here. So if I'm standing diagonally and underneath this hopper right here, I'm gonna go out by 1 block, and then I'm gonna pillar up by 3 blocks so that I'm on the same plane as this observer. And on top of this block, I'm going to place 1 piece of sand and then 1 cactus. Next, I'm gonna make sure that this fuel line right here goes straight into the side of that cactus. And in order to do that, I need to make sure that I put a hopper facing this direction into that hopper with a minecart track right on top. I'm also going to place some blocks around this to ensure that the minecart goes directly into the hopper and nowhere else. Just make sure not to put a block next to that cactus because it will break it. I'm then going to take this minecart track and run it into the opposite side of the same cactus to land on a hopper that's going to go into this one right here so that it funnels a minecart back into the other dropper and dispenser system. Now that all the minecart tracks are in place and the retrieval system is built, these powered rails need a power source. The easiest way to power these rails and save on resources is to power the bottom furnace line with a redstone block directly above that. And because it's technically touching both this rail line and this rail line, 1 block powers both rail lines at the same time. And so we only need 2 redstone blocks to power all of these rails until the power runs out. From here, we can add a couple more to fill in the gaps. So all of these rails are now powered, and I want to give this a quick test before I go any farther and actually drop items into the system. I just want to make sure that all the minecarts make it back to the original dispenser. So I'm going to drop a minecart right here. So far, so good. Everything looks to be working correctly. There goes the dropper vader, and the minecart's back in the dispenser. Perfect. So the circuitry and the furnaces themselves are all set up and ready to go, but the only problem with this, that's such a cute baby dog. Oh my goodness. I've not seen a baby one of these yet. Wow, you're adorable. What was I saying? All of this is done, but the only way to get items right now is to manually retrieve them from the furnaces, and that's just not gonna do. You are super cute. The item retrieval for this is going to be super simple. Anytime a furnace fully smelts an item, it will just sit inside of this slot right here, unless there's a hopper directly below it to collect that item. This hopper will not pull any items out of the smeltable item slot or the fuel slot. It will only pull out of the items that are completed, so this is a great way to automatically collect items. I'm going to start with downward facing hoppers on both of these front furnaces right here, and then I'm going to go 3 this direction, with the hoppers facing forward, and then I'm going to repeat that process and do it all over again until we get to the end of the line on both sides of the smelter array. And then on each of these downward facing hoppers, I'm going to take 1 dropper and make sure that it is facing inward so that when you've got 2 of them, they're smiling at each other, ready to spit the items out. With all of the droppers in place, these are all now fancy containers to hold items. We need a way to activate them, and that's what this circuit is going to be for. We only need one circuit, and it's going to send the signal out to all of these droppers, and it starts right here. It's very important you put it on the last furnace in the line rather than the first one, basically because if you put it here, you might lock some items in these last couple of droppers just because of timing. So put it here and everything will drop out. And we'll start with a comparator, which will read that dropper, and then send a signal into that redstone repeater, and then into a block. And that block is going to get read by another comparator, which will then send a redstone signal around here. And in order for this to be a comparator clock, we need to right-click or enable this part of the comparator right here. And then we'll put a block right here with a repeater on top, and a block into the side of that dropper right there. That will activate this first dropper to drop the items. And now I can take a redstone line and connect up all of these droppers to just this one comparator clock circuit. Don't forget that as you go down the line, your redstone signal will get weaker and you will need to extend it with a repeater, and then just carry that signal with repeaters throughout all the way to the first furnace over here, and now all of these are connected up. So regardless of which one of these droppers has an item in it, as long as this one has an item in it, it's going to activate all of them at the same time. From here, I'm going to put down a path of blue ice blocks that's going to carry all of the items toward the storage area. And then on top of that ice, I'm going to put some water streams. Then all of the items that have been dropped will funnel into a point where there's a single block wide stream that will carry them onto a water elevator. And I'm not exactly sure where that's going to go yet because we need to put a building up here. And speaking of, look at this mess. I was gone for 4 days on vacation, and Prow comes by here. Iron Farm and employees left unattended, deemed not safe, ordered to shut down. Who do you think you are? Pfft, safety inspections, get out of here. Oh yeah, look at this too. This hole is dangerous. He's not wrong. He did put some glass here to protect me. How nice of him. Thank you, Prow. Can you come back and finish the job, please? So yes, building around the super smelter is gonna happen. And I'm not quite sure what it's gonna look like just yet. I'm gonna wing it. We're gonna throw something together and see what comes out. And I'm sure it's just gonna be great. What did I tell you? It turned out amazing, didn't it? Oh, I'm so happy with this. So far, I've only got 2 buildings in this area and a plot for a third at the gold farm, and I'm trying to keep them all pretty consistent with the theming, at least in this general area. As we move away from the city center, I'm probably gonna mix up the block palette a little bit more than the quartz and the blue concrete. Speaking of, I'm slowly replacing all of this light blue concrete with dark blue concrete because I think it contrasts better and looks nicer, especially when we start getting these walls built up. Those are going to be made primarily out of blue concrete as well, and I think it just carries the tone of the city a little bit better. But each of these buildings, while they carry the same theme, they each have their own unique flair to them. So for the furnace one, I've got fires all over it with some smoke up there. We'll go inside in a minute. You might also notice that I've got some of this gray and black concrete that makes it look like part of the building might have been a little bit charred from all of the heat going on inside the furnace. The unique piece of the iron garden is the iron trap doors up there, and not this little mess right here that Prow left for me. And I'm sure I'm gonna come up with something to make the gold farm unique as well, even though it'll probably still be in the same theming. Also check that out. I've started working on one of the towers. Lots of building stuff going on here. And I'm gonna have to get to the ground at some point too, because this looks pretty horrendous. Anyway, the building looks great. Let's go on inside. It's kind of an open concept. The roof is completely wide open. I've got some coal blocks sitting around as if it's fuel for the furnaces. I've got the output chest right here, which we'll go over in a second, but I've also put in a blast furnace and a smoker just in case I have a small quantity of ores or food that I'm just trying to get through quickly and don't want to end up using the smelter system. This right here, I'm gonna poke a hole somewhere. I'm gonna poke a hole right here and hope water doesn't start crashing out. There we go. I've got a water elevator that comes up from that ice lane down below, and it goes over the top of 2 hoppers that go into the back of this chest. Now all that's left to do is give this a quick test. I'm gonna go ahead and preload some planks for the fuel, and I'm using planks for fuel because I've got a good source of bamboo. It's easy to get to, and each plank will actually smelt a little over 1 item, so we're wasting as little fuel as possible, but guaranteed to get 1 item out of each one. So I'm gonna start with 1 stack of items, and you know what? You know what I just forgot? I didn't load the minecarts. There we go. 9 minecarts ready to go in each dispenser, and now we can go ahead and give this a quick test. I'm gonna start out with 1 stack of cobblestone, toss it in there, and away we go. Let's go. So far, so good. All of the minecarts are going. I see 1 furnace that isn't lit. This is probably a good reason to test things like this because there might be something trapped in there that shouldn't be in there. Can I get around quick enough to check the other ones? And it looks like there's 1 down there that might be off as well. That's not bad. 62 out of 64 furnaces didn't fire. Oh, there it is. Look, dirt. Dirt's not gonna smelt. Let's go after this last one down here. I think it was like 2 or 3 from the end, probably. And oh no, I see a potential issue. I've got a fix for this. I think what's happening is that these are firing out the items and they're getting pushed up in the water and landing right here. Easy enough to fix. I'll just put a roof over the top of the water stream and that shouldn't happen anymore. Okay, troubleshooting is done. I've cleared everything out. Everything's working fine. We'll do another quick test here, but it was exactly what I thought it was. There were some items in the furnaces that should not have been there, and I've cleared it all out. That's all good to go. And I've put a roof over the entire ice lane. It doesn't need to be visible because all of this is gonna get buried at some point anyway. So let's head back up to the input chest and give it another quick test. I'm gonna do the same thing as I did before. I've got 1 stack of stone that should come out as smooth stone. And there we go, beautiful. All of the furnaces have come online and are smelting up all of the items as we speak. And beautiful, it absolutely works perfectly. Okay, 1 more last test that I want to show you because I've got 2 different items here, stone and cobblestone, and 2 different values of items as well. If I put 64 stone and 43 cobblestone in here, the first minecart is going to take all of that stone because it adds up to 64 items, and then it sends it on its way, and the next minecart will pick up the 43 remaining items, and because there's nothing left in the chest, it just goes. Oh no. I forgot to reload the fuel. Okay, I'm gonna toss all of this stone in here now that I've loaded some fuel into the system, and all the stuff that's down there should now start lighting up. There we go, perfect. And all of that stuff should, again, start funneling up here. The only problem that I have found with this system now, which I may have to make an adjustment on in the future, shouldn't really be a problem if I remember to put the fuel in first. Go ahead and start putting your guesses in the comments how many times I forget.